The transcontinental train screamed to a halt, just as the last light bled from the Wyoming sky. Metal shrieked against metal. Passengers lurched forward in their seats. Owen Brennan's calloused hand shot out to steady his daughter before she pitched into the aisle. "Daddy." Chloe's voice was small and wrong. He pulled her close against his chest. Even through her coat, through his own worn jacket, he felt the heat radiating from her small body. Too hot. Dangerously hot. His heart kicked hard against his ribs. The train car erupted in confusion. Women cried out. Men shouted questions toward the front of the car. Lanterns swung wildly from their hooks, throwing shadows that danced across frightened faces. Owen's two sons pressed close on either side, Jack at 14 trying to look brave. Thomas at 12 failing to hide his fear. "What's happening?" Jack asked. Owen didn't answer. His hand was pressed to Chloe's forehead, and what he felt there stole his breath. Fever. High and climbing. He'd seen this before, 2 years ago, when Sarah took sick. The memory hit him like a fist to the gut. The conductor pushed through from the front car, his face grim in the lamplight. "Mechanical failure. We're stuck here until morning at least. Nearest town's 20 miles through snow." Panic rippled through the passengers like wind through wheat. A woman near the front began to weep. A man demanded they walk to town. Others argued, voices rising. Owen heard none of it. His world had narrowed to the burning child in his arms. Chloe whimpered and burrowed closer. "I'm cold. Daddy." But her skin was fire. He had $12 in his pocket. 3 children who needed him, and his youngest daughter was getting sicker by the minute, while they sat stranded in the middle of nowhere. On Christmas Eve, Jack touched his shoulder. "Dad, is Chloe okay?" The lie stuck in Owen's throat. He looked at his sons, both watching him with eyes too old for their years. Eyes that had already seen their mother die and their home lost. They needed him to be strong, to have answers, to fix this. He had nothing. The lamp above them flickered. Owen pulled Chloe tighter and closed his eyes. He tried to pray, but the words wouldn't come. They hadn't come in 2 years. Not since he'd buried Sarah and watched everything he'd built turn to dust. God had stopped listening to Owen Brennan a long time ago. Across the aisle, a woman stood. She was alone, dressed simply, maybe 30 years old. She carried a worn leather bag and moved with purpose through the chaos toward a crying child 3 rows. Ahead, Owen barely registered her. His own daughter was burning up in his arms, and all he could do was hold her, while the cold crept in through the train windows and the world outside went dark. "I'm here, sweetheart," he whispered into Chloe's damp hair. "Daddy's here." But being here wasn't enough. It hadn't been enough to save Sarah. It wasn't enough to keep his ranch. And it wouldn't be enough now. Watching his daughter's fever climb while help was 20 miles away through snow. The woman across the aisle finished with the other child. As she straightened, her eyes met Owen's across the dim car. She looked at Chloe. Her expression changed. She started walking toward them. "I'm a nurse," the woman said quietly. "May I?" Owen stared at her. In the flickering lamplight, her face was serious, competent. Her gray eyes were steady on Chloe. He realized he was holding his daughter too tight, like he could keep the sickness out by sheer force of will. "Please," he managed. She knelt in the aisle beside them. Her hands were gentle as she touched Chloe's forehead, felt the pulse at her small wrist, looked into her throat. Owen watched those hands move with practiced efficiency. The woman's touch was sure, careful. She knew what she was doing. After a long moment, she looked up at him. Her expression made his stomach drop. "This is more than a simple fever," she said. "Infection. Spreading fast. She needs medicine tonight or—" She stopped herself. "She needs medicine." Owen's mouth went dry. "I don't—" The words tasted like failure. "I don't have money for medicine. We're traveling to my brother's ranch in Colorado. Everything we had went into these tickets. Saying it aloud made it real. He was taking his children west to live on charity because he couldn't provide for them himself. A year ago he'd owned land, had a home. Now he couldn't even afford medicine to save his daughter's life. The woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she glanced at Jack and Thomas, hovering behind their father with scared eyes. Something shifted in her face. "I have supplies," she said. "I'll treat her. I can't pay you," Owen said. The shame of it burned worse than Chloe's fever. "I can't. I'll find a way to pay you back. I swear. When we get to my brother's, save your pride for later." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "Your daughter needs help now." She opened her leather bag. Inside, Owen glimpsed bottles and bandages, instruments he didn't recognize. She pulled out medicine, mixed something in a small tin cup. Her movements were quick, sure. "What's her name?" she asked. "Chloe. She's 6. I'm Alice. Alice Hartwell." She held the cup to Chloe's lips. "Drink this, sweetheart. I know it tastes bad, but it'll help." Chloe drank, grimacing. Alice checked her pulse again, felt her forehead. She showed Owen how to sponge Chloe's face and neck with cool water from a canteen, how to check if the fever was climbing or holding steady. "You've done this before," Owen said. 10 years. Alice pulled another bottle from her bag. "I travel. Treat whoever needs treating." She paused. "Most places. People can pay. Some can't. I help anyway." Owen watched her work. This stranger was using her own supplies, her own medicine, on his daughter, asking nothing in return. He didn't understand it. In his experience, nobody gave something for nothing. Alice met his eyes. "The next 3 days are critical. The infection has to break or—" Again she stopped. "I'll stay with her through the nights. You should rest when you can." "I won't sleep." Owen said. "Neither will I." Something passed between them in that moment. An understanding. A shared burden accepted. Alice stood, gathering her supplies. "I'll check her every hour. If anything changes, wake me immediately." "Miss Hartwell," Owen said, "why are you doing this?" She looked at him in the lamplight. Her face was hard to read. "Because she needs help," Alice said simply. "And I can give it." She moved back to her own seat across the aisle, close enough to watch, far enough to give them space. Owen looked down at his daughter, already breathing easier from the medicine. Then he looked at the woman who'd just saved her life without asking his name or counting his money, outside the train windows. Snow began to fall. Silent. Heavy. Cutting them off from the world. Owen held Chloe close and wondered what he'd done to deserve this grace, and what it would cost him when it was over. The train car settled into uneasy quiet as night deepened. Other passengers wrapped themselves in coats and blankets, trying to sleep. Owen sat with Chloe cradled against him. Across the aisle, Alice watched. Every hour, she came to check. Temperature, pulse, the sound of Chloe's breathing. She moved quietly, efficiently, then returned to her seat. By midnight, most of the car was asleep. Only Owen and Alice remained awake in the lamplight. "You should tell me about her," Alice said softly, "in case the fever climbs and she gets confused. What she likes, what comforts her." Owen looked down at his daughter's flushed face. "She likes stories. Her mama used to—" His voice caught. "Her mama told her stories every night." "What happened to her mama?" "Cholera, 2 years ago." The words came out flat. He'd said them so many times they'd stopped meaning anything. "Took her in 3 days. I couldn't—" He stopped. Started again. The ranch went next. Couldn't work the land and care for 3 kids alone. Lost everything. Alice was quiet for a moment. "So you're heading to your brother's, to his charity?" Owen's jaw tightened. He offered to take us in. Didn't have much choice but to accept. That takes courage. Alice said, asking for help. Feels more like failure. Alice looked at him steadily. Keeping your children alive isn't failure, Mr. Brennan, Owen Brennan. Plotted chapter continuation with emotional beats and sensory details. I need to continue this chapter. Target is 394.40 words. I'm at about 280 words so far. I need to add the moment where Chloe calls Alice Mama and the boys watching, plus the snow falling and lamp burning steady. Let me continue. Well, Mr. Brennan, you're on a train with 3 children on Christmas Eve, heading toward a future you didn't choose. That's not failure. That's doing what needs doing. She moved to check Chloe again, as her hand touched the girl's forehead. Chloe stirred. Her eyes opened, unfocused with fever. She looked up at Alice's face bent over hers. Mama. The word was barely a whisper. Alice froze. Her hand hovered above Chloe's hair. Owen saw something flicker across her face, longing so raw it hurt to witness. Then she gently smoothed the damp curls back from Chloe's forehead. No, sweetheart, Alice said softly. I'm Alice. I'm here to help you feel better. But her hand lingered in Chloe's hair, tender, maternal. The gesture of someone who'd done this before, or dreamed of doing it. Owen watched her face and saw beneath the competent nurse to the woman underneath, the one who traveled alone at Christmas, who had supplies but no family to spend the holiday with. A sound made him look up. Jack was awake, watching from the seat beside him. The boy's eyes moved from Alice's hand in his sister's hair to his father's face. Something passed through Jack's expression. Recognition. Maybe. Or hope. Thomas stirred. Woke. Both boys watched the stranger caring for their sister with a gentleness they hadn't seen in 2 years. Not since Sarah died and the world went hard. Outside. The snow was falling heavier now. It covered the windows, the ground, the rails, cocooning the train in white silence, cutting them off from everything except this moment, this vigil, this small circle of lamplight. Alice returned to her seat. Owen met her eyes across the aisle. In that look, something unspoken passed between them. 2 people running from different wounds. 2 kinds of loneliness recognizing each other. The lamp burned steady between them. The night stretched long. And Owen Brennan, who'd stopped believing in miracles 2 years ago, wondered if maybe God was still listening after all. Dawn came gray and cold through frost-covered windows. Owen woke with a start. Realized he'd dozed. Chloe was still against his chest. Alice sat across the aisle, eyes shadowed but alert. Her fever held through the night. Alice said quietly, No worse. That's good. Owen checked Chloe's forehead. Still hot, but maybe not quite as burning. You didn't sleep. Neither did you. Not really. Alice stood, stretched stiffly. I'll check her again. She knelt beside them. Her movements were slower this morning. Fatigue showing. But her hands were still steady as she examined Chloe. She pulled fresh medicine from her bag, administered it carefully. Jack and Thomas woke, rumpled and worried. How is she? Jack asked. Fighting. Alice said, Your sister's strong. Like Mama was, Thomas said quietly. Alice glanced at the boy, then at Owen. Something flickered in her eyes. She went back to her work without comment. The train car stirred to life around them. Christmas morning. And they were stranded in the middle of nowhere. The mood was tense. Supplies were limited. The conductor came through. Reporting another attempt to fix the engine had failed. They'd sent a man on horseback to the nearest town, but help wouldn't arrive until tomorrow at earliest. A woman several rows ahead stood up. Voice shrill. That sick child is putting everyone at risk. What if it's something catching? Owen's jaw tightened before he could respond. Alice straightened. When she spoke, her voice carried through the car. This child has an infection, not plague. She's no danger to anyone. Alice's gray eyes were steel. She's a 6-year-old girl fighting for her life. Show some Christian charity. The woman sat down, chastened. Others murmured agreement. Alice turned back to Chloe as if nothing had happened. But Owen saw her hands trembling slightly as she packed her supplies. She'd just defended his daughter, stood up for them in front of the whole car, like Chloe was her own to protect. You need to rest, Owen said. Please. Alice shook her head. I'll rest when she's stable. You can't keep this up for 3 days. Watch me. There was steel in her voice, but exhaustion underneath. Owen recognized it because he wore it too. The stubborn refusal to quit even when your body screamed for rest. The fear that stopping meant failing. 2 hours, he pressed. Let me keep watch. You showed me what to look for. Alice hesitated. Her eyes moved from Chloe to Owen's face, weighing, measuring. Wake me if her breathing changes. She finally said, or if the fever spikes. I will. She moved back to her seat, sat stiffly, within minutes. Her head tilted against the window. Her breathing evened out. She slept sitting up, too stubborn to lie down, ready to wake at the first sign of trouble. Owen watched her sleep. This stranger who'd given everything she had to save his daughter, who defended Chloe like family, who traveled alone on Christmas and probably had been alone for far longer than just this holiday. Thomas leaned close. She's good, Dad. Real good. I know. Son. Like how Mama was good. Owen's throat tightened. He looked at Alice's sleeping face, saw the determination even in rest. The loneliness he recognized because he'd been carrying his own for 2 years. Yeah, he said quietly. Like that? Outside. The snow had stopped. Through the windows. Weak sunlight broke through clouds. The first clear sky since they'd been stranded. Owen took it as a sign. Maybe. Possibly. He checked Chloe's temperature, held his daughter close, and kept watch while the woman who'd saved her life finally, briefly, rested. The second night was harder. Chloe's fever wouldn't break. It held steady, high and dangerous. Alice resumed her vigil as darkness fell, and Owen refused to leave. They sat together in the lamplight while other passengers slept around them. Tell me about Sarah, Alice said quietly, not demanding, just offering a place for the words to go. Owen was surprised to find he wanted to talk. She was strong. Stronger than me in most ways. Kept the ranch running when I was out with the cattle. Raised the boys while I was gone for weeks at a time. He paused. I wasn't there when she got sick. Came home to find her already burning with fever. You couldn't have known. I should have been there. Alice was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I had a fiancé once, 6 years ago. He wanted me to quit nursing, stay home, be a proper wife. Owen looked at her. You didn't. I couldn't. Helping people was the only thing that made me feel real, needed. She adjusted Chloe's blanket with gentle hands. So I chose my calling over love. Spent every year since wondering if I chose wrong. Why travel alone at Christmas? The question hung between them. Alice didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper, because staying still means admitting I have nowhere to belong. Owen understood that. The running, the fear of stopping long enough to feel the emptiness. He'd been doing it too, in his own way, running toward his brother's charity because staying in one place meant facing what he'd lost. Chloe stirred between them, her small face scrunched with discomfort. Before Owen could react, Alice lifted her gently, cradled her like she weighed nothing, began humming a low, soft melody. Owen watched his daughter settle against this stranger's chest, watched Chloe's breathing ease, watched Alice's face transform into something tender and maternal and heartbreakingly beautiful. "You're good with her," he said. "She makes it easy." Alice's voice caught slightly. "She's a sweet child." "They all are." Jack stirred in the seat behind them. Woke. The boy watched Alice rocking his sister. His eyes found his father's. Owen saw the question there. The hope. The fear of hoping. Owen gave a small nod. He didn't know what he was agreeing to. Didn't know what came next. But he knew that watching Alice with Chloe felt right in a way nothing had felt right in 2 years. Thomas woke too. Both boys sat silent, observing, bearing witness to something they didn't quite understand but recognized as important. Their sister in the arms of a woman who wasn't their mother but held her like she could be. "My aunt taught me that lullaby," Alice said softly. "She raised me after my parents died. Taught me nursing. She used to say healing isn't just medicine. It's presence. Refusing to let someone suffer alone. That's what you're doing," Owen said. "For us," Alice met his eyes over Chloe's head, in the lamplight. Her face was open, vulnerable. "Maybe I'm doing it for me too. Maybe I needed to stop running long enough to remember what it feels like to be needed. Not just as a nurse, as a person." The truth of it settled between them, heavy and precious. Outside, the clouds had cleared completely. Stars emerged, brilliant in the cold sky. Through the window, Owen could see them scattered across the darkness like silver dust. The first clear night since the train broke down. Alice handed Chloe back to Owen. Their hands brushed in the transfer. Neither pulled away quickly. "She's stable for now," Alice said. "But tomorrow will tell. You need sleep, real sleep." "So do you." They looked at each other. Two stubborn, wounded people who'd forgotten how to accept help, who'd spent years carrying everything alone, who were learning, slowly, that some burdens were meant to be shared. "We could take turns," Owen offered. 2 hours each. Alice considered, finally nodded. "Wake me if anything changes." "I will." She settled back in her seat. This time she let herself lean into the corner, get truly comfortable. Her eyes closed. Within moments, she was asleep. Owen held Chloe and watched the stars through the window. Listened to Alice's breathing across the aisle. Felt something in his chest crack open the wall he'd built around his heart. The certainty that he had to carry everything alone. Thomas whispered, "Dad, is she gonna stay?" Owen looked at his son's hopeful face. Then at Alice sleeping. Then at Chloe burning with fever in his arms. "I don't know, son," he said honestly. "But I hope so." The third day broke cold and unforgiving. Mid-morning. Everything changed. Chloe woke screaming, disoriented and burning hotter than she'd been yet. Her breath came in sharp, painful gasps. Alice was beside her in seconds, hands flying over the child's small body. Owen watched Alice's face go pale. "What's wrong?" "The infection isn't responding fast enough." Alice's voice was tight, controlled, but her hands shook as she reached for her medicine bag. "She needs stronger treatment, more than I have." The words hit Owen like a physical blow. His vision narrowed. The train car seemed to tilt. Not again. Not again. He couldn't watch another person he loved slip away while he stood helpless. "There has to be something," he said. Heard the desperation in his own voice. "Something we can do." Alice was already working, using the last of her concentrated medicine, mixing, measuring. Her jaw was set, but Owen saw the fear underneath. The doubt. She administered the medicine. Checked Chloe's pulse, her forehead. "We wait," she said. "See if this helps." But Owen saw the truth in her eyes. She wasn't sure. For the first time since this started. The competent nurse who'd known exactly what to do looked uncertain. The morning dragged into afternoon. Chloe drifted in and out of consciousness. Alice never left her side. Owen watched his daughter's labored breathing and felt the old wound rip open, fresh. I couldn't save Sarah. Now I'm losing Chloe too. The thought was poison, but he couldn't stop it. Couldn't stop seeing Sarah's face in those final hours. Couldn't stop feeling that same crushing helplessness. The knowledge that his love wasn't enough. That nothing he could do would change what was coming. A man several seats ahead stood up. Loudly announced they should walk to town. Leave the sick child behind. Get help for themselves. Owen was on his feet before he knew he'd moved. Say that again. The man backed up a step, but others were murmuring agreement. Supplies were running low. They'd been stranded for 3 days. The child wasn't their responsibility. Before Owen could do something he'd regret. Alice stepped between them. Her voice cut through the car like a blade. No one is abandoning this child. She looked at each passenger in turn. If you want to walk 20 miles through snow on Christmas Day, go. The rest of us are staying. The man sat down. The murmuring stopped. Alice turned back to Chloe, dismissing them all. Owen caught her arm. Why? The question came out raw. Why are you doing this? You don't owe us anything. You could have just moved to another car. Could have saved your medicine for someone who could pay. Alice looked up at him. Her eyes were red-rimmed from exhaustion. 3 days without real sleep. 3 days pouring everything she had into a stranger's child. Maybe I owe myself, she said quietly. Maybe I'm tired of just passing through people's lives, of helping and leaving before it means anything. Her voice cracked. Maybe I needed this as much as you did. The honesty of it staggered him. She wasn't doing this out of duty or charity. She was doing it because she needed to. Because staying and fighting meant something. Meant she was more than just a traveling nurse who never belonged anywhere. Jack touched Owen's shoulder. Dad. His voice was small, scared. Is Chloe gonna die? Owen couldn't answer, couldn't lie, couldn't speak past the fear closing his throat. Thomas started crying quietly. Both boys looked at their father for reassurance he couldn't give. For strength he didn't have. Alice knelt in front of them, took both boys' hands in hers. Your sister is very sick, she said gently. I won't lie to you about that, but she's fighting, and we're fighting with her. All of us together. That counts for something. Night fell. Christmas Day disappeared into darkness. Chloe lay unconscious, barely breathing. Alice sat beside her, one hand on the child's chest to monitor her breathing. The other hand held Chloe's small fingers. Owen sat across from her. Watch this woman who'd given everything, who'd defended his family, who'd stayed when anyone else would have walked away. I can't lose her, he said. His voice broke. I can't go through this again. Alice looked up at him. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Don't give up on her, she whispered. Please. I won't. I promise. She leaned forward, pressed her forehead against her clasped hands. Owen heard her whisper something that sounded like a prayer. He closed his eyes. Tried to pray too. Asked God for mercy he didn't deserve. For grace he'd long stopped believing in. For his daughter's life. The train car was silent except for Chloe's labored breathing and the sound of Alice weeping quietly in the lamplight. The third night became a vigil. Alice had been awake for 3 days, 72 hours of constant watch. Owen saw her hands trembling as she checked Chloe's pulse for the 100th time. Saw her sway with exhaustion as she stood to mix more medicine. Alice. His voice was gentle but firm. Stop. She looked at him, eyes wild. I can't. If I stop. Not stop caring. Stop carrying this alone. He stood, took her shaking hands in his, steadied them. I've watched you pour everything into my daughter for 3 days. Let me hold you up while you hold her. Something broke in Alice's face. The wall she'd kept up. The professional distance. Tears spilled over. I don't know if I can save her. Owen, what if my best isn't enough? Then we face it together. Not alone. Never alone again. He meant it. Meant all of it. Whatever came next, whether Chloe lived or died, whether they had a future or just this moment they'd face it as partners. Not a desperate father and a hired nurse, but two people choosing each other in the darkest hour. Alice nodded, wiped her eyes. Let Owen support her as she worked. He held the lamp while she changed compresses, brought water when she needed it, steadied her hands when the trembling got too bad. Jack and Thomas woke. Without being asked, they joined the circle around their sister. Thomas held Chloe's hand. Jack kept watch by the window, looking for dawn, though it was hours away yet. Tell me about your aunt, Owen said quietly, keeping Alice talking, keeping her present. She took me in when I was 12. Both parents dead from fever. Alice's voice was hoarse. She was a midwife, taught me everything, said healing isn't just medicine, it's presence. It's refusing to let someone suffer alone. That's what we're doing, Owen said. For Chloe. For each other. Alice looked up at him. I've spent 10 years leaving before people could need me too much. Before I could need them. I was so afraid of staying still. Of admitting I wanted to belong somewhere. And now I'm more afraid of walking away from you and these children. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't want to leave, even if the worst happens. I don't want to go back to being alone. Owen pulled her close, let her rest against him for just a moment. You won't be alone, whatever comes. You have us now. If you want us. I want you. Alice said, all of you. I've wanted you since that first night when you trusted me with your daughter. When you let me help instead of pushing me away. Other passengers stirred. An older woman moved closer, asked if she could pray with them. A young couple offered their blankets. The man who'd suggested walking to town came forward, shame-faced, asked what he could do to help. The train car transformed. No longer strangers trapped together, but a community bearing witness, holding vigil, refusing to let this family face their darkness alone. They prayed together, sang hymns quietly, shared what food they had, kept watch through the longest night. Alice told them about her aunt's wisdom, how she'd learned that some healing only comes through presence, through refusing to abandon someone in their suffering. That's what you've all done, she said, looking around at the passengers. You've stayed. You've cared. That matters more than you know. Owen watched his sons, saw them learning what family could look like. Not just blood, but chosen devotion. People who stayed through the hard nights as midnight approached. Owen spoke the truth that had been building in his chest. Alice, I don't know how this ends. Don't know if Chloe will make it. Don't know what tomorrow brings. He took her hand. But I know I couldn't face it without you. You gave us more than medicine. You gave us yourself, your time, your strength, your heart. Alice's tears fell freely now. I haven't had anyone to give my heart to in so long. You do now. They sat together in the lamplight. Jack and Thomas on one side, Chloe between them. The other passengers forming a circle of prayer and hope around them all. Whatever happens, Alice said, we face it together. As a family. As a family. Owen agreed. Thomas looked up. Does that mean Alice is staying for real? Owen met Alice's eyes, saw his own hope reflected there. If she'll have us, I'll have you, Alice whispered. The commitment was made, not waiting for Chloe to recover, not conditional on survival or success. They chose each other in the darkness, before knowing how the story ended. Faith before proof. Love before certainty. Just before dawn. Jack whispered from the window. Look. Through the glass. The first pink light of morning. Christmas night giving way to the day after. The darkest hour ending. Beside them, Chloe stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. Daddy! Her voice was weak but clear. Owen touched her forehead with shaking hands. Cool. The fever had broken. Alice checked her pulse, her breathing. Tears streamed down her face. She's through it. The infection is clearing. Chloe looked at Alice, reached up one small hand to touch her face. You're the nice lady. You sang to me. I did, Alice said, voice breaking. I'll keep singing if you want. Will you stay? Alice looked at Owen, at Jack and Thomas, at this family that had become hers somewhere in the long night. Yes, sweetheart, she said. I'm staying. The train car erupted in quiet cheers, prayers of thanksgiving. Relief poured out in tears and laughter. The vigil had ended, the fever had broken. Christmas miracle arrived not when demanded, but when they'd already committed to each other regardless of the outcome. Owen held Alice as she collapsed into exhausted sobs. 3 days of strength finally spent. He caught her, held her, let her rest while he kept watch. The roles had reversed, and somehow, that made everything complete. Christmas morning light flooded the train car as Chloe slept peacefully. Her fever was gone. Color was returning to her small face. Alice sat beside her, monitoring her breathing. Unable to quite believe it was over, Owen brought water, helped Alice drink. Her hands were still trembling. You need to rest now. Really rest. I will. Soon. Alice couldn't stop touching Chloe's forehead. Checking. Making sure. The fear hadn't left yet, but her body had reached its limit. 3 days without sleep caught up all at once. The train car blurred. Her head went light. Owen caught her before she fell. I've got you. He lifted her easily, settled her in the seat beside him. Alice tried to protest, but exhaustion pulled her under like a wave. She was asleep before she could speak. Owen held her while she slept, studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes. The worry lines that hadn't been there 3 days ago. This woman had saved his daughter's life, had poured out everything she had for strangers who couldn't pay her, had stayed through the darkest night when anyone else would have walked away, and she'd asked for nothing in return. Jack and Thomas sat nearby, keeping watch over Chloe. They kept glancing at their father holding the sleeping nurse. Owen saw the question in their eyes, the hope they were afraid to voice. He thought about what he could offer Alice. $12 in his pocket, no land, no home of his own. 3 children who needed more than one person could give. A broken heart still learning how to beat again. By the world's measure, he had nothing, less than nothing. He was heading west to live on his brother's charity. A failed rancher, a widower, a father who couldn't even afford medicine for his sick child. But watching Alice sleep, holding her safe while she finally rested, Owen understood something. Alice wasn't looking for wealth or security. She'd given up a comfortable marriage 6 years ago rather than stop being who she was. What she wanted, what she needed, was to belong. To be chosen not despite her giving nature, but because of it. To have a place where her love wasn't a service, but a home. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest gift he could offer wasn't security or wealth. Maybe it was honest need. The truth that he and his children needed exactly who she was. That her strength and compassion and stubborn refusal to abandon people weren't burdens, but gifts. Maybe being needed was its own kind of wealth. Alice stirred against him. Her eyes opened slowly, confused. How long? 2 hours. Owen said gently. Chloe's still sleeping. Fever's still gone. Alice sat up, immediately reaching for Chloe. Checked her pulse, her forehead. Finally allowed herself to exhale. She's really okay. You saved her. We saved her. All of us. Owen took her hand. Alice, I need to say something, before I lose my nerve. She looked at him, waiting. I've been thinking about what I have to offer you, and the truth is, I got nothing. No money, no land. My brother's taking us in out of charity because I can't provide for my own children. The admission still burned, but he pushed through it. I'm a poor man with 3 kids and a broken heart that's scared to try again. Alice's eyes filled with tears. She started to speak, but Owen kept going. But if you'll have us, if you'll take a chance on a family that's already broken, I swear I'll spend my life, making sure you never feel like you're just passing through again. His voice roughened with emotion. You'll have a home. You'll have us, all of us, for as long as you want us. Owen, I know it's not much. I know you deserve better, but I can give you what you've been looking for. A place to belong. People who need you, not just your nursing, but you. Who'll stay even when things get hard? Who'll hold you up when you're the one who needs holding? Alice's hand trembled in his. She reached out, touched Chloe's sleeping face with infinite gentleness, looked at Jack and Thomas watching hopefully, then back at Owen. That's everything I've ever wanted, she whispered. Not wealth or security or an easy life. Just this. A family that chooses me. A place where my love has a home. Is that a yes? Yes. She was crying and smiling at the same time. Yes to you. Yes to them. Yes to staying and building a life together. Yes to all of it. Owen pulled her close, held her while she wept, felt his own tears come, the first he'd shed since Sarah died. Not tears of grief this time. Tears of gratitude, of hope, of second chances he'd stopped believing in. Jack and Thomas rushed over, wrapping their arms around both of them. A tangle of family forming right there in the train car. Chloe woke, saw them all together, smiled sleepily. Are you my new mama? She asked Alice. Alice looked at Owen. He nodded. She turned back to Chloe. If you'll have me, sweetheart, I'd be honored. I'll have you, Chloe said simply, as if it were the easiest decision in the world, as if love and family were always this simple when you stopped running from them. The other passengers applauded quietly. The old woman who'd prayed with them wept. The young couple embraced. Even the man who'd suggested abandoning Chloe came forward to offer congratulations. Outside, they heard a train whistle, the rescue engine arriving at last. But for Owen and Alice and 3 children who'd found their mother, rescue had already come. It had arrived in the darkest hour, in the space between desperation and grace. They were already saved. The rescue train arrived that afternoon. Passengers gathered their belongings with relief and exhaustion. Owen held Chloe, still weak but smiling, asking for water and food. Signs of life returning. As they prepared to transfer, Owen spoke to the conductor. Is there a preacher at the next station? The conductor nodded. Reverend Thompson. Heading home after Christmas services in Cheyenne. Should be there when we arrive. Owen looked at Alice. That's soon enough for you. She smiled. I've waited 30 years for this. I can wait another few hours. They boarded the rescue train, settling into seats together. Chloe curled in Alice's lap. Jack and Thomas pressed close on either side. Other passengers from their stranded car smiled and waved. They'd witnessed something sacred. They knew. The train rolled into the next station as sunset painted the sky orange and gold. True to his word, Reverend Thompson was there. An old man with kind eyes who asked no questions when Owen explained what they needed. You want to marry this woman, more than anything. And you want to marry this man? Alice looked at Owen, at his 3 children already claiming her as theirs. Yes, more than anything. Then let's not waste time. The station chapel was small and simple, rough wooden pews, a cross on the wall, nothing fancy. But when Owen and Alice stood before the Reverend, It felt like the most sacred place on earth. Alice wore her traveling dress, wrinkled from 3 days on a train. Owen wore his work clothes, dusty and worn. Jack and Thomas stood as witnesses, backs straight with pride. Chloe sat in the front pew wrapped in blankets. Holding wildflowers someone had saved from a Christmas bouquet, the Reverend smiled at them. "I won't ask if anyone objects. I can see God's hand in this. You've already been tested, already chosen each other. All that's left is to make it official." He led them through the vows. Owen's voice was steady as he promised to honor Alice's independence, her calling, her strength, to let her be exactly who she was and love her for it. Alice promised to stay, to build a home with him, to mother his children and love a man brave enough to need her, to stop running and start belonging. They exchanged no rings, had no flowers or music or fine clothes. But when the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, and Owen kissed Alice gently, it was the most beautiful wedding either of them had ever seen. Chloe scattered her wildflowers as they walked back down the aisle. Jack and Thomas grinned. A few passengers from the stranded train had come to witness. They clapped and cheered. Outside the chapel, Alice laughed. "I can't believe we just did that." "Regrets already?" Owen teased. "Not one." She looked at the children, at her new family. "How could I regret finding where I belong?" They boarded the train again to continue west. But everything had changed. Alice wasn't traveling alone anymore. She sat with Chloe in her lap, Thomas and Jack pressed against her sides, Owen's arm around her shoulders. The same train car, the same journey west, but transformed. No longer a vessel of loneliness, but a carrier of hope, taking them toward a future they'd build together. "We're still poor," Owen said quietly. "Still heading to my brother's charity. That hasn't changed." Alice smiled. "Everything's changed. 3 days ago I was alone with no place to call home. Now I have 3 children, a husband, and a family that chose me. That's richer than any bank account." Through the window, the landscape shifted, snow giving way to thawing ground. The first hints of spring coming despite winter's grip. New life pushing through frozen earth. Chloe stirred in Alice's arms. "Tell me a story." "Mama." The word settled into Alice's heart like it belonged there. "What kind of story?" "A happy one." Alice looked at Owen, at Jack and Thomas, at this family that had been strangers 4 days ago and was now her entire world. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a train that broke down on Christmas Eve, and everyone thought it was a disaster. But really, it was a miracle waiting to happen." Chloe smiled, closed her eyes, listened to her new mother's voice as the train carried them forward into their new life. The lamp above them burned steady. The same lamp that had flickered in chaos 3 nights ago, but steady now in peace, lighting the way home. Owen pulled Alice closer, kissed the top of her head. "Thought about how the trail you're meant to walk sometimes doesn't start until your plans fall apart. How the family you're meant to find doesn't show up until you stop searching and start being found. That Christmas, when the train broke down in the middle of nowhere, Owen Brennan stopped running from his broken heart. Alice Hartwell stopped running from her need to be needed. They met in the space between desperation and grace, and built a home there. The train moved forward through the twilight. Inside, a family rested together, found, chosen, home at last. And somewhere in the winter sky, stars emerged to mark the journey, bearing witness to miracles born from broken trains and borrowed time and the stubborn refusal to let suffering be faced alone. The journey continued, but nobody aboard was traveling alone anymore. They were traveling home.